I recently read an article about plans to extend the V&A Waterfront into the ocean. This research then led me into a whole deep dive of the Foreshore Reclamation project that took place in the 1940s. Before this project, a big portion of the city centre used to be in the ocean. Obviously it wasn't actually in the ocean, but where the city centre is now used to be the ocean. Let's take a look at the Foreshore Reclamation project of the 1940s, and after that I'll discuss the new plans to take more land from the sea. The foreshore area of Cape Town was completely underwater until the 1940s. In total, 194 hectares were reclaimed on the southern and southeastern shore of Table Bay. That's about 492 soccer fields. So it's quite a big area. Before the reclamation, the shoreline skirted the grounds of the present railway station on the main line side, and the row of palm trees which marked the waterfront at the time is still there today. I find it pretty fascinating, but at one stage, the waves used to splash on the castle walls, the Cape of Good Hope castle walls, which is now like landlocked, and there used to even be a Woodstock beach. Pretty cool. I think it should be mentioned that between the 1870s and the 1930s, various attempts at smaller scale land reclamation was done around the harbour area, including the building of 2 moles and various different jetties. So when the big land reclamation happened, it wasn't the first thing that they had tried to protect the ships in the harbour. I think there were 2 big reasons for reclaiming this land. Firstly, the increasing size of the Cape settlement was paralleled by the increases in trade and the numbers of ships visiting the bay. The importance of this trade meant that the harbour facilities and attempts to reduce wave action at the anchorage points have always been an important part in the city's civil works program. Secondly, the increasing population and expansion of the town meant that more and more land was required for housing, as well as commercial and industrial development. The geographical constraints of the city bowl meant that expansion possibilities were quite limited, and except for the extension towards the southern and northern suburbs, it was kind of inevitable that this land reclamation would become a reality. I guess the big reason for this land reclamation was primarily motivated by the need for larger and deeper harbour facilities. These had to be upgraded from time to time to keep pace with the increasing size and types of ships that were present. The land was reclaimed by the sea by a Dutch firm, the Hollandse Annemang Maatschappij. Let's hope I said that right. If you're Dutch, you can correct me. The work started in December of 1937 and was scheduled to be completed by July 1941. But obviously, due to the war, that was then delayed and the date was extended to July 1945. The material for this massive landfall operation was made up of primarily sand, mud, and rock broken up and dredged from the bottom of the new basin. The material was loaded on barges and transported to the offloading site, where a mixture of 80% water and 20% spoil was pumped through big pipes onto the area to be reclaimed. This hydraulic method was meant to assist in quick consolidation of the fill. A total of 11.5 million meters cubed of dredged material was used in the fill, and some sand dunes were also transported in trucks from around the present-day site of the Cape Town airport. And this sand was then deposited onto the site as well. In addition, the scheme allowed for clean and selected building rubble from around Cape Town to be deposited on the site. Municipal waste was also used in the fill. The materials dredged up from between the 2 walls were removed by pipeline and deposited on the land side of the inner wall, thus reclaiming that 140 hectares, which is now called the foreshore. It was reclaimed then for future development. Hunt's Straydom Avenue marked the farthest point into the sea before the land reclamation. That was where Adderley Street ended and the Promenade Pier, built in 1913, began. I find this pier a kind of interesting subject to explore. It was largely demolished in preparation for the reclamation of the land, but when building CTICC 2 in 2012, construction teams actually found pieces of the pier, which I thought was quite cool when they were digging. A little more about this pier. The pier extended 300 meters out into the bay and incorporated a tower, concert pavilion, restaurant, swimming and boating facilities. Unfortunately, the pier wasn't a financial success despite it being quite popular, and the demands of the harbour expansion saw the last concert held on the pier on the 27th of March 1938, after which it was then demolished. well, mostly demolished. The Foreshore area was originally administered by the Foreshore Board, and it actually didn't fall under the jurisdiction of the City Council. The board operated by appointing a manager and a secretary and decided on public works within the area. Such works were then carried out by the City Council at the expense of the board. The board was eventually disbanded post-1994, and the Foreshore now forms part of the City of Cape Town and is administered along with all the other areas within the metropolis. Interestingly enough, there were a lot of plans at the time of the Foreshore being built to develop it into something much more grand. There were a lot of different plans, and it kind of didn't happen that way, and largely the Foreshore area was used for parking lots. Now there are attempts to make it better, but it could have been a lot more planned and well executed, and it wasn't. So that's kind of interesting. Many large modern buildings were actually erected on the Foreshore in the decades after the Reclamation, including Cullenborg, the extensive goods station, and the Paul Sawyer building. The southern headquarters of the Railway Administration also had a building there. The Sanlam Centre was built there, which for several years was actually the tallest building in Southern Africa, as well as a medical centre, several banks, and numerous other commercial buildings, all built in a somewhat uniform style and according to a general plan. Now, the Foreshore also holds the Civic Centre, the Artscape Theatre, Cape Town International Convention Centre, and a range of hotels and office buildings. The Foreshore project was possibly the most ambitious land reclamation scheme undertaken in any city in the world at the time. So that was the 1940s Foreshore Reclamation project. But I recently read an article that the V&A Waterfront has plans to reclaim some new land around the Granger Bay Area. A rezoning application has been submitted to the City of Cape Town to reclaim an additional 440,000 meters squared for development. The V&A has commissioned several environmental impact studies on the Granger Bay Expansion project, with climate change scientists having projected that sea levels rise at about 2 millimeters every year, and that severe weather events will increase. This obviously needs to be factored into when considering any work done along the coastline. The land that's being reclaimed will be for mixed-use developments, which will include retail spaces, restaurants, hotels, and residential apartments. There will also be considerable cultural and public facilities, which will involve re-establishing public access to that part of the shoreline. The Granger Bay precinct is located in the northwest section of the V&A Waterfront, close to where the Cape Wheel has been moved to. I'd actually been wondering why the Cape Wheel was moved from its old location to the new one, but I guess them looking to expand the Granger Bay precinct might have been a motivation for them moving the wheel to a new location. I don't know. This project will be a 20 billion rand development project, and it will be rolled out in phases over the next 15 to 20 years. After the recent development of the Silo Precinct and Canal districts, the V&A Waterfront hopes that the rezoning application will allow it to create additional residences in the waterfront, as well as enhancing public areas, fostering economic development, job creation, and creating new pathways to the sea. Other aspects for development in the Granger Bay area include a public pathway that will link the city centre to Muli Point, which will then connect to the Atlantic Seaboard Promenade. So it'll become one long connected pedestrian pathway, which I think is pretty cool. Another concept being considered is to develop a new public bay area that coastal protection measures would surround. This new space would provide opportunities for opening more public access to a new protected area that has amenities for swimming, etc. This whole new reclamation project sounds pretty cool, and I think if the environmental factors are considered and potentially mitigated safely, I would be very excited to see this happen and to see how the next 15 to 20 years shapes up. And also it's pretty cool that this project is happening almost 100 years after the original Foreshore Reclamation. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked it, please give it a like, and why not subscribe to see future videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.